Hello, this is Dr. Jean. Dear future people, well, let's introduce this particular video with a very funny thing. Well, it is kind of a paradox. People believe that they need champions who would fight for them. However, the problem is that no victory is ever permanent without wisdom. People tend to resist wisdom. So what happens? Well, what happens is that swindlers will then hire fake heroes and people are happy. But then that will lead to quite significant problems and side effects in the long run. Okay? And the real problems are not taken care of. And so to mend this situation, to improve the possible solution, we are going to talk about a mechanism that is called revision. First, we are going to talk about revision just in general, and then we are going to talk about revision of history. This is going to be very important for our purposes later on. So, while reality is infinite and continuous, the attention span of anyone is finite. So what happens is that when you plan to do something, for example, go straight, okay, that is your goal, go straight. Keep your direction. Then, depending on your attention span, you can have deviations and quite significant ones without you noticing it. So let's assume that there is an interesting scenario, okay? That you start out in a straight line holding one direction. And then what happens is that because of some kind of barrier, okay, you have to turn a little bit to the right. But then you, because your attention span is short, then you will forget what your original direction was, and you just keep on straight because your original goal was to keep your direction straight. And so you go like this, and then all of a sudden there's a little bit of a deviation. You go like that, and then like this, and then like this, okay? And then because your attention span was too short, the only thing that you remember doing is to keep your direction. And then you forget what your original direction was. And so, what is the solution for that? Well, obviously, it is to try to maintain a wider attention. Okay? And so, if you have a wider attention, then you can review, okay, what actually happened to you, okay, from a higher point of view. And so, when you have unexpected local influences that may change your direction, you will have a general direction in your mind, okay? Because you look at your original plan from a wider perspective, not just I have to go straight, I have to go straight, but what the original direction was, okay? So you develop a longer attention span because you review what your original direction was and how you deviated from that. Okay, so for that you need a wider attention span, which comes from review. So what do we mean by review? Well, you need to regularly compare your local position and your present direction with the original plan. Okay, so okay, I started here. I am here. Yes, I'm going straight, but I deviated, so I need to adjust. Okay, so you review things from a wider perspective. And again, your review will increase your perspective. So you process, you interpret, you digest, and you integrate local conditions, and you reinterpret your trajectory. Okay, so you are cognizant of where you are and where you originally wanted to be. So then the question comes that now that you know the local peculiarities, your local conditions, okay, do I really want to keep my original direction? Because, I know more now, okay, and maybe that my original plan was based on lack of knowledge. Maybe I am more interested in going a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left, okay? So your review and reinterpretation based on new data, however tiresome it is very important if you want to keep your direction or if you want to develop new directions, okay? But then this review will need continuous and continuously high maintenance mental effort. But it is worthwhile, you see. First of all, because if you want to stick to your original plan, you have a wider perspective. You understand your position better, so you can, better effectuate your plan. You can realize your plan. But also, it's good because if you decide to change your direction, you do this on the basis of a review and comparing things. So here's the deal. You develop divine moments of clarity, like a mountain climber. At the peak, there might be fog and you can't see anything. But while you are climbing the mountain, there will be moments when you have the greatest of views, and that causes you inspiration, okay? A sense of purpose, a sense of direction. So review, in this case, in this analogy, the view that you get, okay, from review is fantastic. It gives you quite a bit of extra energy. So review creates inspiration, and inspiration then creates more energy. And then your confusion is going to be resolved. Because why? Because you understand and you digest what happened to you. In other words, you gain life experience. And life experience is about the most important thing you can get, okay, to make you have a sense of purpose, a sense of direction, okay? And it causes joy. Joy because energy, because clarity, because view generates joy. So a deep organic review creates these divine moments of exaltation, of inspiration. Okay? So notice that I'm not talking about here some joy coming from some kind of performance, some kind of a great result. Okay? No. It is clarity. It is order. Okay? That you gain by reviewing your position, reviewing your direction, okay, and continue your unique path by this very specific, very individual, very unique path that you are continuing to follow. But here's the thing. You think that, okay, I am enlightened, I am inspired, and now it's going to be forever, I'm going to be happy. No. You see, no, because reality is not fixed. Reality changes. So you need to continuously review your position, your direction, okay? And that will require maintenance, high energy maintenance, because review, of course, costs mental energy. And review needs to be continuous. Okay, so if you want to maintain clarity among a sea of confusion, you need to maintain that by continuous effort. So if you have a linear progress in a virtual world where there are no barriers, there are no effects, there are no effect fields, then of course, you can do that without much review at all. But these kind of virtual worlds, these kind of virtual paths, are there at the expense of ignoring local conditions. So you imagine that those local peculiarities, your local circumstances and conditions are not even there. Okay, you ignore them. Why? To maintain a simple path. And the whole idea behind maintaining a simple path is to avoid the need for review. And consequently, you avoid the need for high maintenance of mental energy. So what is important in life? What is important in life is what gets attention. But important things need repetitive organic review. Okay? So without organic review, okay, your attention is going to be inorganic. And what is important to you is going to be empty. You see? You have to have an organic attention with organic review so that you have the clarity and the inspiration that is the best joy that you can imagine in life. So, tools created for the original plan may need to be adjusted because you didn't know what you are going to encounter. And you will have local conditions and circumstances. And so you need to have new mental tools to understand these circumstances. Okay? So the explorer changes with the exploration because these reviews cause you to have a broader view, a greater perspective. But only if you are willing to adjust your mental tools and willing to uniquely reinterpret, okay, your original plan based on the local circumstances that you just got to experience. Okay. So extrapolations need to be compared with actual conditions. Because when you started out, okay, you didn't understand what you're going to get. And now that you understand what the local circumstances are, you need to review your original purpose as well. Adjustments do not mean that one has to give up the original plan. No. But in most cases, you need to modify your original plan. Because if you don't do that, then that means that you ignored what you have learned during your path. So review helps keep an approximate original direction because you have a wider attention span. And the plan needs to be robust enough to accept these revisions. So if you have a very narrow, very strict, very fixed plan, then that will almost certainly need to be revised. So you need to have a wide perspective with a flexible plan. But even then, you will need a lot of revision on the way. So non-robust plans based on ignorance will collapse almost immediately. Okay? Whereas if your plan is robust, then yeah, you need a lot of organic revision, yes, but you can approximately keep your direction a lot better. So a too linear, a forced plan, requires a lot of ignoring and a lot of push, okay? The artificial, violent push, okay? And so what you are going to get because of that is a virtual world that will lead to fanaticism, orthodoxy, a kind of monolithic thinking, and ultimately this will result in idolatry. So let's make a little bit of an analogy here. So here is a plan with a very narrow perspective. Okay, so you have a straight line and you want to keep your direction straight no matter what. Okay, so you ignore everything that you learn along the way and you forcefully keep your straight line, straight direction. When you do that, okay, you need to use a lot of force, okay, and you are maintaining a virtual world, ignoring all actualities, let alone all potentialities. Now let's see what happens if your plan is wide. So you have a wide range, you have a direction, yes, okay, but you have a wide perspective, okay? Then no matter if you deviate from your plan, you will be in acceptable parameters, okay? Especially if you keep on reviewing. So again, review is going to make you have a wider perspective, and a wider perspective is going to give you a lot of flexibility. And in addition to that, you are going to have clarity and order as an additional reward for your effort. But review needs to be continuous because reality is not fixed, you see. And if reality changes, then you have to change your views by reviewing them according to these changes. And remember that reality does not change independent of you. Because of your review, reality will also change. So you are in organic interaction with reality, always. And that leads us to something a little bit more specific. So we are going to talk about a special kind of review of history. So we start by realizing that history, like any other mental product, because history is a discipline, right? And so as a discipline, it is a mental product. It is continuous and multi-dimensional. If it is continuous and multi-dimensional, then yes, you're going to be held by dates, periods, events, great persons, states, organizations, institutions, yes. But they are just kind of spotty views of some aspects of a multidimensional matrix, okay? So these are didactic tools. These are things that help you remember or help you understand certain processes, okay? But they are not the whole thing. They are certain aspects of the whole thing. And the problem is that for every reviewer, you have a choice. What you think from your perspective are important or more important things. So here is an example of an event or a historical period, which is under examination. And here, because you concentrate on this, then you understand more that, of what is actually happening during this period of time. And you will see more what the consequences were of those particular events or persons or changes in institutions or countries or whatever, okay? Because You are magnifying these effects because you are focusing on them, right? And again, this period will then be an important period for you because you studied it more. So you understand more of the consequences of these events. But then remember that historical period is entirely your choice. Okay? And it has a self-perpetuating importance, relevance, because you examine these events and you see more their importance. And again, remember that historical periods are always subjective. Why? Because your examination is from a certain point of view. And certain events are more important for you. So it's like a magnifying lens. Okay, you see, you examine those facts more, okay, and then you see their consequences more. So you see them as more important. And the same thing about factors, trends, and risks, and whatever. These are all, they all fall under the same mechanism. So history from a wider perspective, okay, remember review, okay, you have now a wide perspective. You have a deeper understanding that there are not just events and periods from one aspect, but you have multiple aspects. And then things are more interconnected. And since things are more interconnected, your periods, your events, your great persons seem to be all of a sudden a little bit less important. Because from this aspect, these things are important, yes, but from another aspect, other things are more important. So all of a sudden you see that history is not like a laminar flow. It's much more turbulent because everything, you know, if you are willing to consider a lot of aspects, then everything will be connected to everything else. So what is density of events or density of time or time periods? Where you feel something denser, more important, if you focus on it more. And these densities are posi-dimensional, considering a low number of dimensions. But if you have a wider perspective and you consider a lot of aspects, a lot of dimensions, okay, then all of a sudden there are no independent events. There are no independent great persons, okay? And you don't have a linearity, and you don't even have recurrent events. You have patterns that are similar, yes, but you have a lot of variety, a lot of transition, okay? Because you are willing to consider more dimensions. So, history for the beginner is always oversimplified. And the human mind is such that the default, okay, the easiest thing to understand is linearity, okay? So you have a linear history. Some people call it progress. So you progress from this to that, okay? And it's a simple progress, okay? So if somebody tells you something like that, you know that that person who is talking to you about history with that kind of a view has a narrow perspective. So history has a beginning, runs a linear course, and has an end. This is a child thinks that. This is a very infantile interpretation of history. It is like imagining a river and not seeing but the simplest linear flow, a laminar flow, okay, which is a very good approximation for a novice because you have to start somewhere. But history for the more advanced student, okay, will not be like a linear flow. It does not have a beginning. It does not have an end, okay? And it does not have separate events and great persons and, fixed patterns. No, patterns are going to be similar, but it's going to be a constant flow. Remember measuring? When you imagined a laminar flow under ideal circumstances, but now you are considering a lot of different aspects, okay? And all of a sudden your flow is not laminar at all. Your ideals are there, but you modify them because a real river is not like your schematic representation of it, okay? And you have turbulence and you have all kinds of influences. So what happens is that history has trends, yes, but these trends depend on your interest, okay? You pick out certain processes that you are interested in, and from the point of view of those processes, yes, there's a trend, okay? But if you consider a lot of dimensions, okay, then you will see a lot of trends and a lot of processes, okay? And then you have to review them. The more you know, the more you have to review. And then you will see that this is not a simple pattern, okay? It is a very complex pattern, a multi-dimensional matrix, like everything else. So history, you have a limited attention, causing you to believe that there is a linear, finite model of history. You have poor point discrimination. Why? Because you consider only certain aspects. And then you will see densities, you will see discontinuity. And you don't see, you have a spotty view. You don't see what connects to events because you're not willing to see things from different aspects, right? So you have limited mental processing, so you will have uniform trends. Notice that the less you consider of history, the more uniformity you might have um, from interpretation, because there is less to interpret. The more things are there to interpret, the more the interpretations are going to be different among different observers, among different sentient beings looking at history. So history can be then relative to an individual, a historian, a family history, family looking back, family reviewing it together, a village community, a tribe, a nation, a humanity. You have all kinds of levels, okay? So you may have a whole nation looking back at how things, worked out in the past. And that's going to be a whole different level. And you need to have different kind of focus than if you are an individual looking back at individual history, or you always need some kind of consensus, okay? Because the more refined your review is, the more you have differences in opinion, and differences in opinion need to be resolved with some kind of a consensus, and that consensus need to change based on common review. Now, if you want to go through this, you will have coordinated consensus, you see. And that coordinated consensus, okay, is based on selected trends. So you enforce that only these things are important and those things are not important. And you see a complex system only from certain aspects. You're in a posi-dimensional review. And so when you enforce that, then you have legends, you have sacred traditions that are fixed, And you are going to have, oh, a very fashionable word in 2023, a narrative. Okay, so what is a narrative? People use that word in 2023, but do they understand what they mean? A narrative is when you oversimplify something from a skewed perspective, from a certain point of view, ignoring all other aspects, all other dimensions. Okay, that is a narrative. And not surprisingly, when you have as much mental inertia as you in fact seem to have in 2023, narrative is going to be very important. Okay? And you enforce your narrative by violence or by seduction. Okay? So, history. Yeah, there have to be legends and traditions, and there even have to be coordinated ideology to some degree. Okay? Because these are the things that provide a texture, okay, for a community. You have to have a common ancestor, you have to have common life experiences, you have to have patterns, tradition, you have to have religion. Okay, so these things are important. You need to realize also, okay, that legend and traditions and ideologies are are subject to revision. Without revision, the whole thing is going to explode. So yes, common history, commonness of life experience, local uniquenesses in a community are extremely important, but they are not a given. They are not fixed. If they are a given, if they are fixed, if they do not change in time, then the whole thing will just go up in the air. So these are models, oversimplifications, and they need to be constantly refined. They have a domain. And if you want to extend these domains, then they need to be reviewed. Okay? And understand, when you write a universal history, that's not a universal history. That's a universal history from your point of view, from your group's point of view. And you always have to realize that you, your group, your community, your nation, writes a history about everything that that individual knows with the appropriate biases included. Okay? So, interpretation of trends, legends, traditions, and ideology always have a domain. Okay? And if you export or you extend the domain, then you are going to have empire. A coordinated, forceful extension of domain with ignoring local uniqueness. And once you have empire, then you have what we have right here in 2023. Okay? And that is suppression of local uniqueness. And now we go back to our original idea. As we started this video by saying that it is the people, it is the average person who maintain empire. Why? Because they resist wisdom. So what happens is that swindlers maintain empire by hiring fake heroes that seem to fight for the people. They are the champions of the people. And when we expect that everything will be good, if only our champion won. But everything is not good. Because whether or not our champion wins, we still need wisdom. Because without wisdom, without revision, there's no salvation. You see? The people cannot be saved by champions. The people can be saved only if they understand that at their own level, in their own local condition and circumstances, they have to have a local, unique review. And that review needs to be continuous. And it requires a very special, very unique mental exercise. And without that mental exercise, if you ignore legal cultivation of the mind, then you end up with this, and with this, independent of great persons and champions. And with that, I thank you for your attention and goodbye for now.